Hi there, my name is Toby and this is Body Efficiency Training, and I'm trying to share a unique way of looking at the human body and using the human body. And this has come to me through many years of training internal and external martial arts, but also through fixing my body. I've had multiple problems with my body that I've had to fix, and most notably 4 major surgeries on my belly. And I want to talk about that today, to tell you a bit about my story and how I went through these surgeries and healed myself or recovered from them. Now, it was back in 2012, I went into emergency surgery. I woke up in the morning, I knew something was wrong, and I told my wife, we've got to call the ambulance, something is not right, I can feel it. And the ambulance came and they weren't convinced. They said, there's nothing wrong with you. And I said, no, something is wrong, you've got to take me to hospital. So I had a feeling, and I sort of knew something was seriously wrong, but I didn't know exactly what. And when I got to hospital, then I had a rupture inside my gut, something ruptured. So I was very lucky I was in the hospital when this happened. And it was excruciating pain, the most pain you could probably imagine. It's like being shot in the belly or stabbed in the belly. And my poor wife had to witness me screaming the place down. And they couldn't knock me out. They gave me more gas. But I said, someone just knocked me out. I got quite a high pain threshold, so I didn't pass out. And then I got rushed into emergency surgery, and after that surgery, so I had a certain amount of my colon removed, and then I had a temporary bag put in, a stoma bag. So then I had that for a couple of years, and so I was cut from right down the groin all the way up to my sternum, so a big cut, and I had to recover from this. And of course the first thing when I woke up lying in hospital was, oh my goodness, what on earth has happened? I've lost all my kung fu, because of course I train all my life, I'm very physically active, and the first fear is I've lost it all, it's all over for me, I'm just now stuck here, can't do anything. So I was very depressed and had to pick myself up from that. But I was very lucky, my wife supported me, I couldn't have got through this without her continual devoted support and care for me. And also the hospital staff were remarkably supportive. Very nice team of nurses picking me up. And a couple of interesting stories to note. One of the nurses there, again, was very encouraging, telling you've got to get moving. So after I had my surgery, the second day, they were trying to get me to stand up out of bed, but it's so painful to move because of the stitches. And the guy said, look, the sooner you move, the better. If you don't want to get set in that position, you want to move sooner. So as soon as I got the idea, okay, we've got to move sooner, then I'll do it. Off I go. We get up and move. And then on the first day, I got my Zimmer frame. So I had a Zimmer frame that allowed me a bit of freedom of movement. And I remember that 3 a.m. in the morning, I got up and I managed to get up by myself, get into my Zimmer frame and take a few hobbly steps to the hallway. And when no one was looking, I let go of the Zimmer frame and just tried to pull into my Tai Chi stance and feel my stance. And I realised, okay, I can still do this, because the bone structure was still intact. All my bones were fine. I had just got a flesh wound, and that's the way I saw it. A flesh wound, okay, I can fix a flesh wound. Another interesting story I had was one of the nurses was looking after me, and I saw he was a young guy, and I could tell he was a martial artist, the way he was standing. I said, are you a fighter? He said, yeah, I was a boxer. So he was going to become a professional boxer, but he injured his hand. So he could no longer do that anymore, and he became a nurse. So then one night I was just there, and I crept up on my Zimmer frame, put my Zimmer frame beside and tapped him on the back of the shoulder. So he turned around and I had my hands up. I said, yeah, come on, let's do a bit of sparring. And he just looked down at me, because he's a tall guy, and he's a tall Nigerian guy, and he just looked down at me and said, what are you going to do? I will break your jaw. And it just cracked me up. So, but I was just messing around, trying to lift my spirits and trying to feel my body. I could still do something. I could still do something in my body, and I could. And this is partly how I train myself, because the weakness is in my core, and the core is the most important part of your body in all movement. What on earth am I going to do with a weak core? And I was in hospital maybe 5, 6, 7 days, I can't remember how long, and then out, and had to go straight back to work. So my wife and I, we work as picture restorers, so we work in a workshop, and it's quite physical work. I've got to lift things up, move things around, and there's no one that could help us, because I'm the only one that knows how to do the job, so I have to do it. So I go straight back to the workshop. My wife, of course, drives the car, so I better not drive. and she helps me out as much as possible, but I still had to do the things I had to do, move about, leaning around, leaning over things, stretching, moving. And the only way I could possibly do that without injuring my belly and the staples in my belly was by holding the perfect structure with my bones. So I have to hold my belly still, stationary. I had to hold my spine neutral, stationary. And then all the movements I do with my body have got to come from the hips and the shoulders. And I have to do it ever so carefully, because I do it slightly wrong, bend the spine, I suddenly put pressure on my core, and then I'll feel sharp pain. Of course, I'm on painkillers at that time still. But this is essentially how I began to develop this training, because I was forced to use a proper, good structure, because my core was so weak. All I could do is, first of all, just lift my foot off the floor while sitting on the couch. I couldn't do anything else. And lying down on the bed, I couldn't lie down because to sit up and lie down was too painful. So the way I did it, I tied a rope and had to lever myself down with the rope, and then sit up. I had to pull myself up with the rope, maintaining a neutral spine, always controlling my structure from the bones. So I'm not using the muscles so much as the bone structure, because using the muscles involve using the core, and I couldn't do that. I've got to do that very carefully. So I had to have another surgery to remove that first stoma bag, and that didn't go according to plan. They were going to do keyhole surgery, and that didn't work. So they had to cut me open again the second time, so another big cut from sternum to groin. And of course, each time they cut you, they have to pull it back, and you lose a little bit. So I'm getting more and more stretch across my belly. Second time round, I had to build myself up again, but I'd done it once before, so I thought, okay, I can do it again. And the second time round, that's when I got left with a residual hernia in my navel, which I talked about in the video on hernias. So I still got that hernia, and I've still got to be very careful. I can easily get another hernia in different places. I've still got to build myself very, very carefully. And this is unusual, because most people don't have so much damage done to their core. Even so, this is the way we all need to train. This is actually the most efficient way of holding our body. Holding the core slightly in, slightly tight, and keeping a bit of an expansion in the rib cage and a nice natural S curve of the spine. We need this. This is actually the most efficient way of holding our structure. And I've learnt that because I've had to learn it. And without these surgeries, I probably would have never bothered that much, because none of us really bother. We just take our core for granted. But if you look at every movement you do, ask yourself, is my core tense when I do this movement? The chances are probably no. You're doing the movement with your shoulder or your arm and then your spine, but your belly is loose. Now your belly cannot be loose. Any movement you do with your body, the tension must start in the core and stretch outwards. So you check yourself out of interest, and you'll notice if the core is not tight, where's the movement coming from? It's going to be the back muscles, the spine, the curve in the spine. And this is less efficient. You're using one or two vertebrae in the spine to do everything. You need to hold the whole structure good, and then try to maneuver from the larger joints, the hips and the shoulders, where there is power and natural strength. And then furthermore, after the second surgery, I rebuilt myself again, slowly going to the gym, building up some strength, beginning to do some martial arts again. But because my structure was improving, so this whole experience, I've actually used it as a growth. I trained myself, I'd improved my alignment and my structure dramatically. And another aside, of course, lying in hospital, there was nothing much I could do. I still trained myself there. I trained my feet. Lying in bed, I would wiggle my feet, stretch my toes, and I learned how to stretch all the toes apart and control them to some degree. So again, I would have never learned that control of my toes had I not been forced to lie in bed in hospital. So this is the attitude we all need. If we have an injury or sickness, it's a chance to train something. It's a chance to learn something new. You've been put in a sort of boot camp, and now you've got to train this. And it's first of all, oh, I don't want to train that. And that's the shock of the sadness. Oh, I've got sick, I've got injured. But actually, when you get your head around it, you think, okay, I'm in the boot camp. I'm going to train this now. And when I come out of this boot camp, I will have improved on myself in such a way that I've made a permanent improvement on myself through this training, through this sickness or this illness or this injury. And then of course after the second surgery, I still had a second stoma bag. So the second surgery again didn't work, so they had to do some other, cut me open and give me a second bag on the other side. So I had a cut on the other side. And then I needed a third surgery to close that bag up. So and essentially took me back to normal pretty much. But there's so much scar tissue in my belly. Again, I was told it's very likely I'm always going to have pain. I'm always going to have stiffness in my belly. But I didn't accept that, and I kept training my belly, and my belly is very mobile, and the pain, I don't have pain in my belly anymore. I used to have cramps, digestion cramps, different belly cramps. I still can get it. I can cramp up my stomach if I'm not careful. If I overdo it, I'll get cramp in my abdominals. So I have to be very, very careful. But compared to what I was told, my belly is surprisingly mobile now, even though it's still not, I would call, full strength. I've got to work at this for the rest of my life, building up the strength of my belly. And then the next thing that happened to me is I went and did a martial arts course. The wife and I, we found a nice Qigong course doing a particular type of Qigong and Tai Chi training. And at the end we did a bit of pushing hands, a bit of fighting, and there was one student there who was a bit too excited and he really wanted to fight. But both the wife and I have got some experience, and he had to go with my wife, and he couldn't quite dominate her, even though he was much bigger and stronger than her. So I see he was getting frustrated, and I thought, I want to have a go. And then I had to go with him, and of course that might have been a bit too much for me, but I got excited, and I'm trying to hold my structure while this guy is trying to push me over. Again, he couldn't quite dominate me, but he might have pushed me a bit too far, and I overworked my belly. And that could have been the moment I developed another hernia, developed an ingroinal hernia down at the groin, because my abdomen was so weak. I had another hernia developed there. So then I had to have another surgery to put a patch on that one. But that still makes me very nervous that area is quite vulnerable, and I could develop hernias down there. I'm aware of that. So I've got to be careful in my training from now on. But the trick is not to be demoralised, and that is difficult. There's no doubt about it. When you're lying in hospital and you think it's all over, it's very difficult. You've got to find anything you can hold on to in your mind to keep your spirits up. And I'd repeat things over in my mind, in sort of chants and whatever I could think of, just to try and pick myself up. But interestingly now, I've got to the stage now where I'm stronger than I was before. I'm actually stronger than I was as a young man. And I plan to keep on going, getting stronger and stronger. Because in this training, I'm training the joints and I'm training the tendons. And the tendons and the joints will keep growing. They're not affected by age. If you keep training your bones, i.e. the bone density, by putting pressure on your bones, holding your body weight or tapping your bones keep increasing in density. They will always grow. And you're working the joints, the tendons around the joints. The tendons always grow. Now the muscles, as you get older, they might not grow quite so fast. But even so, you can grow your muscles if you really want to. But I'm working the joints and the tendons, and they will keep growing no matter how old you get. So by the time I'm 90 years old, I'm going to be stronger than I am now. I want to be churning out muscle-ups at 90 years old. So my plan is to keep getting stronger and stronger. There's no excuse for getting weaker. Old age, sickness and injury is not an excuse to not train. You see, if I've got an injury now, again, a vulnerability in my belly for a hernia, and I could feel it, I've overworked it, okay, I've got to be careful, I could be getting a hernia now. What do? Well, I don't stop training, or I stop high intensity training, but I'm training now alignment. I've got to keep control of my body structure. I've got to go back and control and train something different. And I can gradually increase strength doing other things with my arms and legs, but I can only do that when I have got complete control of the area of weakness. See, if you've got an injury in your hip or an injury in your shoulder, same thing. I can't move my shoulder, got an injury there. I still need to try and balance my shoulders as much as possible, but if there's an injury, okay, there's the pain. Very carefully, I've got to try and reach a natural alignment, improve my alignment, and release the pain, let the pain go. But the pain stops you, so you don't want to do it. There's a way. Keep manoeuvring carefully until you can find a better position, and that will actually speed up the healing process. And trying to move the joints around in the socket, if you've got an injury, starts the blood flow. You want to increase the blood flow in the joint, and that again speeds up the healing. You can also massage yourself and use medicine like Tiger Balm as well on yourself. But this is a way of speeding up your healing by keeping yourself going, training your body structure, training your body alignment, and controlling the joints and the tendons. It's not so much about the obvious muscle groups. It's about connecting your bone structure together and using your bone structure to do whatever it is you need to do. Even here, lifting up my coffee, I'm doing that with my bone structure, the rib cage, the shoulder, holding my whole bone structure even to do this little movement. Why bother? Well, it is more efficient. There's a better energy flow as well. When you do this, there's a better energy flow. And when you do this synchronized with breathing, that's an even more efficient energy flow, because we're now, when I do a deep breathing, I'm also increasing the oxygenated blood and also magnetizing the blood. As you can see, I've done some videos on the electromagnetic system of the body, which I'll leave the link to after this as well. If you're recovering from surgery, it is possible to recover more than you might think. And don't have to listen to what you're told. If you're told this can't be done, you try not to listen to that. Try to just keep the positive idea. There's always something you can do. There's always an improvement you can make, no matter how hopeless your condition seems to be. You see, even if you are paralyzed in bed, your brain still works, you can still breathe, you can still do some energy work, even if your body can't move. And in fact, it becomes imperative that you do that. You do some energy work, you start to feel a different aspect to your being. The energy work is important for healing. It's important for healing as well. Feeling the energy in your body and allowing the energy to flow and the energy to go to the place where it needs to go to heal your body. Anyway, I hope this is interesting to you. And at least you know now, when you see me dancing about on these videos and moving about, it might be impressive, but what's more impressive is the amount of damage I've sustained to my belly, and I'm still doing that. And I've still got hernia, 2 or 3 different places where I've got hernia, slight hernia and risk of hernia, and I'm still doing it. So it is possible. It is possible. Everything we do, everything that happens to us is a chance to grow and learn. And it's about not making the value judgment, is this good or bad? No, it's just a thing that has happened, and it's a thing that's telling you what you've got to do next. And the next thing to do is train to heal yourself, and that training is something very valuable to learn. And that training you'll take with you after you've healed yourself. All right, check out these other videos here. Thank you very much for listening, and look forward to seeing you next time.